What's up, bookworms? Welcome to episode 120 of the Cantina Book Club podcast, where readers can find interviews with authors of all genres. I'm Megan, self-proclaimed content queen, here to bring you insights from the authors themselves. Happy New Year, everybody. This is the first episode of 2026, and if whether you're just discovering Cantina Book Club now or you've been here for a while, I appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Each week features a Cantina conversation with an author. Sometimes they're returning guests, sometimes it's someone new. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss out on an episode, and feel free to browse through existing episodes so that you never miss a beat. You can catch a previous interview about a book that you finished. Today's episode features a chat with a Brooklyn Quintana talking about her Fynneas Fog series. The first book that we're going to be discussing today is Nine of Swords. That's book number 1. I really enjoyed this chat with Brooklyn and getting to know her thoughts and basically how she developed the world and came up with the characters and Finn's journey and all that good stuff. Some spoilers may or may not pop up in these conversations, but the episode is more enjoyable if you've read the book anyway. So if you don't know why I'm gushing over one of the side characters, one of the mentors in her book, hit pause, add this episode to your playlists. Go pick up a copy of Nine of Swords, and then come back to this interview when you're finished. We'll be right here. Just a heads up that I often use adult language to express my feelings toward these authors and their work, whether the characters need to get their shit together or I'm saying what the fuck to the author for making me feel things. Just please be mindful around listening ears. And now a word from Crystal Hope, founder of the Book Podcast Connection.
Hello, listeners. My name is Crystal Hope. I am the host of Must Love Books podcast and the organizer of the Book Podcast Connection. The BPC is a networking group of over 100 book-related podcasts, from fantasy to romance to horror and every genre in between. There are even podcasts for authors and writers. Check us out on Instagram at Book Podcast Connection or at www.bookpodcastconnection.com and discover your next bookish obsession.
And I know I'm biased, but I definitely recommend that you check out all the amazing plethora of bookish podcasts and subscribe if you're looking to get more out of your reading lists. And without further ado, get ready, grab your favorite drink. Here is Brooklyn Quintana. So today we've got Brooklyn Quintana. We're talking about her YA series, Fynneas Fog. We got Nine of Swords, and that's the first one. Blood in the Water is number 2. You're working on number 3. Thank you so much for joining me today. Like I was saying earlier, such an adventure. It took me a minute to get acquainted with the world, but I think just because you're world building in any fantasy world, it takes a minute for readers. But once I did, you put these kids through it. You delivered a lot of story building, a lot of adventure, and I'm excited to dig a little bit deeper today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. And I can't wait to talk about all things Finn. I mean, it's always so exciting when the interviewer has read the book and we can really dive into some stuff.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I liked Finn, even though I'm sure you as the author, you designed him that way, but you also wanted to shake him a little bit, be like, bruh,
Yeah.
or kid, listen, stop being so impulsive and amongst other adjectives.
12 to 13-year-old boy with some things going on. So I feel like he embodies that rambunctious, annoying, get into trouble kind of spirit for sure.
Yes, absolutely. But piggybacking off of that, before we get started, can you give a summary of, or at least a prep? Because I know that the second book is out and you're working on book 3, and we're going to just be focusing on book 1 right now, Nine of Swords. So if you can, we're going to try to be spoiler free. If you can give a prep, a summary of Nine of Swords so that people can follow along.
Definitely. So Nine of Swords follows Prince Fynneas as he goes from his very sheltered childhood home with his sister and his dad up in the north down to meet the rest of the royal family before being shipped off to a military school on a tropical archipelago. While he's there, he has to try and make friends, survive his zany kind of instructors that make Hogwarts look like a very safe and responsible school. There is some magic, mystery, and murder afoot, and Finn has to try and make it through all of this while also figuring out who is trying to take out the royal family and also not get killed by all the monsters.
Yep, in a nutshell. He's like, I'm thinking like how I was at 12 going on 13, and these kids, because he's got a whole class of people his age, and like you said, likened it to Harry Potter. He's the first in his he's an only year one. He knows that he's just getting started, and his classmates know that they're just getting started, and it was so interesting, so fun. I loved what you did with it, but I was also like, oh damn. So can we get into your background a little bit, because I want to explore like how this experience was for you. These are your debuts, correct? This is your debut
Yes,
story,
yes,
and
those are the first ones.
there's a lot going on, and you clearly have plans and like Easter eggs and foreshadowing and a whole thing. Like it was so fun to get into. So I want to explore like how this experience was for you. Just yeah, I just want to explore the experience and big lessons learned, stuff like that.
Definitely. I always wanted to be a storyteller of some sort. Initially, I thought I was going to be an actress. Then I dabbled with the idea of going to film school to be a director and ultimately ended up going to the University of Central Florida and I got a BA in creative writing and English literature. And then after that, I took a hard turn and thought I was going to go do law for a while and was studying to go to law school. And I was working in financial legal compliance and social security disability law at some law firms and finance firms. And then hard turned back to creativity because I realized that was just not where I was supposed to be. And then I wrote the books when I started writing book one at 24 ish. So there's a lot to learn, but I had a good foundation of having read a lot growing up and being surrounded by like my dad, who's a big reader, and obviously a love for film. So watching stories unfold and learning pacing through a more experiential learning method, because I don't think my degree really helped that much other than just having a really solid foundation in how to write proper sentences.
That's yeah, it sounds like you were really like trying to figure out where your knack for creativity and storytelling was gonna be the best. And that's funny how that's like going into law seems way out there, but I guess you could probably argue that you were still looking like something interested you about facts and following the story. Like law, it is a story, and each case that you're presented with could be considered a story, and trying to find those details and find out how they connect in a way that you know it front to back, like you're ready to throw down for. So like I think that's so interesting, but I'm just like maybe I'm just grasping at straws here, but I think that's so interesting that you bounced around a little bit to try to like these certain things interested you, and then you found your way back to storytelling, and I love it. So piggybacking off of that, I imagine there was a lot of research going into developing Finn's story. We can just however level of detail you feel comfortable of getting into. What I want to know, what was your process? Did you like maybe even piggybacking off of your previous interests professional wise, did that prepare you for this creative project? Was there any like in terms of research, did you bring those skills over to this new project? Anything fascinating that you learned, surprising that you learned?
I think for the most part, I've been writing short stories since I was a little kid. So I had spent at that point, when I learned to read and write, like 5 years old, 6 years old. So almost 20 years of honing that craft definitely helped. So there wasn't really research done in the crafting of a story side. And then I'm a big history buff. I love nonfiction. I will read it all up. Surprisingly, despite the fact that I have a vaguely medieval setting in my book, medieval England and Europe isn't really my primary purview or wheelhouse of interest. I really like ancient Rome and Greece, so I actually pulled a lot from that and just tweaked the setting to that like foggy, rainy British scenario in the beginning. And then obviously a very odd choice for a fantasy book with a jungle setting for the majority of book one and two. So that was there. I grew up between Florida and Texas, bouncing back and forth between living in those two states. So the tropical setting was very much pulled from just real life experiences of living by an island. And my parents live on the island now. Like the mangrove scenes and turtles and dolphins and things like that. And Finn's very justifiable fear of water. I'm not a fan of getting in the ocean. So all of that was just pulled from real life experiences. And then, like I said, pulling some stuff from just background knowledge and history. That I also, weirdly enough, that we talked about it, almost decided to switch a major to be a history major because at some point I thought it would be cool to be a museum curator. And it was like, yes, this would be a perfectly viable option in 2025. And everybody was, maybe we don't do that.
Hey, it could be argued that yes, it's a good choice. That's so cool. There's like little things that I want to pick up on that. I love that. So I'm a sucker for historical fiction, I have found, because I imagine if you ever step away or whenever you're finished with a Finn's story, you can definitely dip your toes into historical fiction because I love it's just there's some truth to it and it's based on true events or based on true stories, but you can take liberties with it and be have that creative side to it. I think there's just I like reading books that make me feel smarter when I'm finished. So I think it's so fascinating to learn. And there's also the element of the familiar, like what we know or what we're aware of, but then we can dig a little bit deeper into oh, whose perspective are we diving into? Who's geographically across the world or our region 20 years ago or 40 years ago or 60 years ago, things like that. I think that's so cool because I like again piggybacking off another thing, I loved all the like animals that you inserted into like the furry animal or furry and not furry animal friends that helped along the way. And it was almost like anytime me as a reader, we encountered another animal, I was like, they're probably going to be not threatening. Even though they're threatening, it's like by now at this point, there was a certain point where I was like, oh no, they're another friendly one. Like it's okay.
It is like inadvertently a Disney princess sometimes. That kid, he's making friends with all the animals and they're helping him out, and people are just like, oh, that's weird, but weirder things are going on. We won't question that aspect of what's happening.
Like don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Like,
Exactly.
okay,
They're
again,
like,
Finn is
that's
4 for
why.
4, like he's 3 for 3. Just leave it up to him to find help in an animal that can understand and is friendly and wants to be helpful because there was Doug and then there was Buttons and then there was Terry and I was just it was so funny. By the time I got to Terry, I hate spiders, but by the time I got to Terry, I was like, "Ooh, is it gonna be?" I still don't trust him, but then I was like, "Okay, there's more to him." I just loved there was another example of like, again, I'm gonna rant, I'm gonna go off on tangents, but I loved how they had realistic reactions to their situations, even though they can't like rule anything out, like any strange circumstance or a strange event that happens, really they teeter on the fence of is this going to be surprising or something that we expect? Should we know what to expect by now? But then like even if they don't expect it and they still get the information and get the situation, they're like, yeah, okay. Like
I
it's
think
yeah.
for the most part, his classmates and him as a character, all the kids are very much self-aware to a certain point where they're like, yep, that tracks for what's been going on right now, and I just don't have the time to be alarmed. Or, like, at this point, horse sized talking spider, not as bad as the professor who throws rocks at us. So we're just going to roll with that and take, like you said, don't look the gift horse in the mouth. Terry was decently useful towards the end. He's very polite, and they were like, all right, worse things have happened so far, so we're just not going to touch this and we're just going to move on. So I think in the world in which they all exist and live and have grown up in, it is a reasonable response that they're just going to roll with it because in like a situation that's life or death or life or grievous injury, they knew better than to question the talking horse-sized spider.
Yeah, yeah, and I would have been there, but then again, they at the school, the Morency, they know I've got the impression that they knew what to expect to an extent. They were prepared, like, yeah, once we turn of age, we're gonna go there, and they've heard things that in their lives leading up to that. So like there's a level, there's a sense of what the characters can expect and there's that level of expectation and also like oh, this is what they're talking about. Like, there's this but also then, like, touching on the fact that they're monarchy, they're royals, and they're gonna be in their classmates are non-royals and either, like, mostly children of lords, correct? Or, like, whatever the system is.
Yeah, so
There's
all
not, like,
the
a lot of commoners being in this
yeah,
story, like, being
so
admitted, right?
at the Morency Academy, they're all part of the aristocracy. So they're like, think of it, it's like West Point. They're training the officers, and then they have a separate school that you hear a bit more about in book 2 called Fort Briar Hollow, and that's where they train the commoners to essentially be like cannon fodder. So that's just like your regular boot camp school, and they're at West Point learning what you could argue is more intricate things, but what you could also argue is just like straight torture for children.
We'll touch on that. We're liking this to Harry Potter, but also, like I said, you put them through it. I wanna, like, explore that because there's a level of obviously, the stakes are high, but then oh, I don't know. We can explore, like, there's previous publications that, like, YA, it doesn't mean, like, all sunshine and rainbows because we've seen YA where it's the stakes are high and there's death and there's tragedy and there's scheming and plotting and betrayal and all that. Like, these adult or serious themes are touching are the YA, these children's stories are not shying away from that. So I wanna, like, explore maybe how you approached it, decisions that you made, especially when you're like, you bounce around POVs a little bit too, and I guess I know that's a loaded question, but I just wanna explore how you branched like, where you started off and where you branched out and how you raised the stakes and stuff like that.
So ultimately, I wanted to write books that I would have wanted to read if I was like 15, 16, even up to like 30 years old. So I was very interested in crafting a story I found to be interesting with characters I thought were unique and not super interested in fitting it specifically into a genre. Technically, it is a YA book, but it doesn't follow YA tropes almost at all. Like, there's a negligible amount of romance. Finn has a passing crush on a girl at this point, but he's like 13, so he's just like realizing that girls aren't gross. Finn, unlike Harry Potter, Harry's against the system and authority and wants to do everything himself and not tell the teacher. Finn is the opposite. Finn actively runs to Mariah constantly for explanations and assistance and just doesn't get it, but he does seek out adult and authority figures to help him out. Again, with Harry, with the Sorcerer's Stone in book 1, when he's introduced to the world and everything, he's very active in trying to figure out what's going on. Finn is straight up handed a mystery and says, I don't care. And just gives it to Fiona to do off screen because he can't be bothered. It's not his cup of tea. That's not his bag to deal with, essentially. Again, with like YA tropes of trying to tear down the system or revolt and start a rebellion. Finn's part of the monarchy, so he's pretty happy with it being intact. So every time something happens, he's like, oh, that's bad. We should probably look into that. So you're almost like on the other side of the spectrum with Finn as a primary character because he's not leading a rebellion. He is not trying to change anything. He's not romantically inclined to have a plot that follows his interest in this girl he likes. Finn is just like out here desperately trying to keep the status quo, and then the world around him is just falling apart left and right. And then, with keeping with the fact that they are young, the setting they're in forces them to be characters who have to grow up quickly. And I think a lot of the adult characters do recognize and do talk about, especially more into book 2 and a little bit into book 3 as well, where they do say, we know that they are young, but the world doesn't care that they're young because of the positions that they are put in, the titles that they have, and the families that they come from. Like, things are expected of them. And they live in a very harsh world where we're not going to hug out our problems and we're not going to have an armchair session with the therapist. You're going to fight it out and if you have to cry about it and get over it, and we have to move on. So I think you have a lot of interesting kind of emotional undertones and layers to each of the characters of how they respond to situations and tragedies and terrifying events that happen to them at a young age, and how the world they're living in is forcing them to adjust to it and deal with it. And I think that the interesting kind of thing for me, at least, is the difference between how Holland and Finn, who are both princes, they're both from the same family and they're the same age, how they react so very differently to things happening. Holland is a lot more accustomed to the system, so he knows how to tamp it down. And Finn is a crier. Finn will cry, and then he'll just like punch somebody through their shield. So they handle things very differently, yet they're in the same position. So I always find when I'm writing the stories that the differences and similarities between Holland and Finn are so fun to compare in situations. Like how they interact with even their peers is so wildly different, even though they are in the same spot in life.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, absolutely. Cause it's so funny because you're absolutely right. I have two little boys. They're 8 and 4, almost 5. And so I love how you said, oh, he's just discovering that girls aren't gross because I'm totally prepared for that. So I want to explore, how was it for you to explore like the point of view of some like a little adolescent boy? Like, throwing aside that he's in this environment, this setting, this world that we're not familiar with, how was it for you to write from a point of view of someone almost like the opposite of what your point of view is?
I think it was actually really easy because I grew up, my best friend was a boy. We did taekwondo together. So, like, we were in a combat sport together and we were the same age. So, for like a big chunk of our lives between 7 and 15, we were attached at the hip. So, I saw what it was like for a boy to grow up essentially and all his like weird, awkward phases
That's
and how
so
he
fun. I love that.
yeah, so I pulled like a lot from that because I don't have like a younger brother or a son that age. So I had to pull from that and obviously like reading books where characters are young boys, watching movies where there are young boy characters, like adolescents and things like that, and just picking apart behaviors that you see. Just walking around in the mall when you see like a boy interact with a little girl and you're like, oh, he's got to be in that age where he's just realized she's not gross, but he like doesn't know what to do, so he's just being weird and mean and picking on her.
That's so funny. So I imagine, and you could share as much as you feel comfortable with. Were you and your bestie like Lux and Finn, or like, were you? Is there something there? Maybe not. Maybe yes. Maybe it's not Lux. Maybe you weren't Lux, but you saw him with his Lux, like stuff like
I
that.
think because our parents were friends and we would like go on vacations a lot, our two families, I think we had a lot more of a sibling dynamic.
Yeah.
So we would, like fight and argue and things like that. And then when we were younger and we, like I said, we were doing taekwondo together. So we would like physically like hit or kick each other. But obviously, as we got older, there was a much bigger size and power difference between the two of us because now he's a 15-year-old boy and he's a lot bigger than me. So I can't just like wallop him anymore. So you have to
Yeah,
learn.
you can. Like,
Yeah, but if he had free license to hit me back, I'd be like, all
right.
right,
You're like, you can, but you
you
have to
can
deal with those
have more now.
consequences.
And I think that's like even something that comes up is when they're in their fighting class and Lux and Firiel are doing really well, and they're like, yeah, for right now, you're doing well because you're all the same size, but you have to learn to be more tactful because in a couple years, they're just going to be bigger than you and they don't have to use tact anymore. They can just
Yeah.
overpower you physically. And I think in a school where it's a combat school and you do have boys and girls, it's a really interesting thing to think about where I don't like this is going to sound so bad. I hate like girl power books and movies where the women are just like fantastic at everything and they're just taking down these full grown men. And it's like, unless you were raised your whole life like Black Widow or
I could
something,
see that.
you're not
It depends on like what skills they've honed and that they're experts
exactly.
at. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like when the girls get all up on their high horse about like they beat one of the boys, the professors do make a point of saying, yeah, for now, but you need to work on strategy, craft, speed, skill set, because in a few years they're going to be double your size and you can't just hit them harder than they're hitting you. It's not going to be a factor. So it's I think it's a very realistic take on what it would be like to train boys and girls in a close combat kind of situation to be like, all right, you all should work on swordsmanship, but the girls, you really need to work on how to be quick and precise because it's going to matter more if you face a grown man in the future, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I love that distinction because it's so true. Where like it does become drastically different and their strengths, like you notice their strengths. But it's like, yeah, if you notice any woman in combat, it's their like agility, right? Versus men, they're like their strength, but they're not focusing on agility. And women are like, they know they could beef themselves up all they could try, but like at the end of the day, their strength is going to be, or their advantage is going to be a pivoting of their agility and seeing the anticipating.
Things
Yeah.
like that. I remember growing up and we would go to tournaments and things. And when we were younger, like up until like 11 or 12, you were all grouped together by rank. So we were black belts together. So we would compete against each other. And when we were younger, we would spar, and it was a very fair fight. But then as we got older, they separated it even as teenagers into the boys and the girls of each rank, because at that point, he wasn't even so much bigger than me, but he did have a longer reach than me. And I would have to punch up and it would be harder. And so you have to, I think, turning it back to like Finn's class and things, it is really important to emphasize that the girls can be better. You can still have that girl power aspect, and I think that's really great because it's emphasized in the fact that Lux wins a lot of fights later on out of tact and speed, and she pays attention to her boy classmates. So she sees, like, as they're getting better and you have all the training montages and things, she's like, okay, you swing like a barbarian, so all I have to do is sidestep and stab and we're good to go. So you see they start to like catch on very quickly that, okay, I have to compensate for things. And I may not have to do it right now, but it's going to be very pertinent for me in the future to do well and not die. And I think like playing with things like that is a lot of fun, because even you see Mariah's sister, she didn't get, they have at the end of the year, but for people listening, they get appointed to a different military division. And Mariah's sister is like the best of the best. People are like, this is a lady who will definitely kill you. But she didn't get put into the cavalry, which is horse and as well as being like on the ground, foot soldier, stabby stab, close quarter combat. She's in the archery division because she's really precise and she's like a sniper with a bow. So you see, even like the person that they're like, oh, she'll get you, she still can get one upped by her own brother at that point, but nobody thinks less of Dot for any of that. They're still like very reverent to her skill set, and she's very strategic and she's very smart. So I think it's really fun, instead of saying that everybody can do the same exact thing always, is you have different characters who are excelling at different things based on who they are. Like Ollie is not the fastest kid in the class. This is not the person you're going to send to go run a message to your squadron on the other side of the field. But Ollie, he's good at tying knots. He figures out what he's good at. He's an amiable guy. People like him. He starts using that to his advantage. And I think that part of the story writing for me was a lot of fun.
That's so cool. I love that because, yeah, you can explore different components of it and explore different parts of what like different divisions of an army of a fighting force would really look like, and what kind of personalities, what kind of characters would fit into that, and what those individual journeys would look like. I love that. It's like so many layers to the storytelling. Because it was funny because when I picked up these books, I was like, oh, these are thick. But after a while, I was like, okay, I get it. Like, I get why there's a lot packed in here. Okay, side note, Mariah, I don't know how you managed to make him swoony in a YA book when there's nothing like insinuating about who he is on a sexual level. It's just like, oh, he was a looker back in the day. He had all the girls swooning, and he's like not interested at all. He's so broody, and he's so like over it. That's a just that I get, at least. He's like, whatever. He's bored at everything. He knows he has to train these kids, and he's like, yeah, okay, little children. And then he's mysterious, and it's so funny how we've like the little girls are noticing him, and it's so funny how like when we learn more about him, we're like, oh yeah, it makes sense that he got that. He nabbed that particular person. Like I'm like, it's so funny because I was like getting a little bit more out of Mariah as the story progressed. I was like, nah, I could see how I want to know more about him, and how I want to like adult version of his POV where I want to know more about him, but also like not from a like a YA point of view. Like, so I like, yeah, Mariah is definitely an interesting character, and I love like he's multidimensional because he comes off as like broody and mysterious and no nonsense, but then he melts with Minnie. Like you see so many soft spots with him. Like he wants to be strict. He wants to be like stern and professional and instructional with the kids at the school, at the academy, but then he lets those little parts of his softness, his compassion and his empathy seep through, because he knows, I imagine that's because he knows what it was like to be in their shoes, and he's like, maybe he wished someone would have shown that softness to him, and or maybe it would have been helpful here and there, because again, Holland and Phineas and a couple of the other kids, their situations are so unique where it's like, yeah, everybody's prepared. They're all prepared for it, but there's parts of it that they're not. So it's like just a tidbit to you, a novella with Mariah's romantic life. I would love to read that. Okay, I'm going to throw this at you. What were the most challenging parts to write? What were the most enjoyable parts to write?
That's not fair. I think the beginning was the most challenging because like my ADHD brain really wanted to get to the swords and jungle and monsters. And so setting a solid foundation of the world building and why we're doing this and why are we going to the school and who are these people and why do they matter, I think was the most challenging part to get across. And then the most exciting would probably be when Finn has his little dalliances over in the place between places because there's so many little key intricate details that you see in those scenes that come up in book 2 and book 3, and there's so many just little easter eggs in there and so many things that are going to be important that it was so fun to write it because I know what's going to happen and I'm like, you just think that he's having a moment. It's not a moment. It's going to be super important later. So that was like a lot of fun for me. I love foreshadowing and laying groundwork that way.
I was gonna say, like, I read so much, and I know with fantasy, like, there's so much opportunity for world building, and I guess even like there's almost arguably with almost any genre, but I feel like with suspense or thrillers and with fantasy, less so than, I don't know, romance or historical fiction or like women's fiction. There's probably less of a need or less of an opportunity for sneaking in those Easter eggs or foreshadowing. So I imagine, like, as a fantasy writer, even from what I know from reading Nine of Swords, it was just like, I like to believe I'm better at catching things, but then I was like, when I read things like towards the end, like towards the last 200 pages, and I'm like, wait a second. I'm like, wait a second. I was like, Brooklyn. I was like, and mentally, I was like, wait, and then I will have the physical book, so I can't like search and find like on a digital like Kindle. So I was like, I'm just gonna go with it, and that's my experience. So I was like, I'm not here to like critique. I'm here to read so that I could talk to you about it and then go into it that way. But if I feel like I could easily read this at least 2 or 3 more times and pick up so many more things now that I know what I know, but then I'm like, "Oh, Blood in the Water." I'm like, "Oh, now I got that, and I'm looking forward to that." And like I said, like you were teasing, oh, there's a little bit more of that. No, that's cool. And I totally respect the struggle, any struggle that you undertake with that because it's a lot. Like I was just, I don't know. I don't shy away from thick books, but I think I like you have to get in the mindset sometimes. And I knew I was like when I was messaging you, I was like, no, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. I'm just saying, like, once I was like ready to pick this up, I was like, oh, and then once I got into it, I was like, okay, no, like I get it. I get it. There's a lot going on. And there's reasons for expanding on certain things and then teasing other things. And that's just the beauty of storytelling. And that's the beauty of like me as a reader of knowing what to expect. But then I'm like, oh, I think we were turning back my original thought where I was like, oh, I like to think that I'm good at catching on things because I read so much, but then I'm like, oh, never mind. No, never mind. I'm not good at I'm not gonna claim to be good at anything because there were things where I'm like, wait, what the F? Because also just like and we try to be spoiler free, but just with things like I just felt for Finn because he with his particular situation, he just had to relive and go through horrible things that like over and over again just as a nature of who he is, and it was just like I felt for him because I had to remind myself like he's a little
Yeah.
boy
I
and
think one of the really cool things about that in the nature of Finn's story that he does relive certain aspects of the story over and over again. And as a reader, you may think like, oh, it's repetitive, and then you get to the end and you see his growth each time he has to go through it. And then as a non-spoiler into book 2, he has a lot of growth who he is as a person, not just the things you would grow up and naturally mature, but very much who he is and what he has to deal with and all of the different people expecting different things of him, he very much has like this crisis of faith and identity of like, I don't want to do this and I never asked to do this and it's not fair. And then just has to come out the other side like, I have to do it. I have to be this person and be stronger. And I think it's a really interesting thing because he is so young to see how he does deal with it. And I think you touched on it earlier with how Mariah reacts to Finn because he does relate a lot to Phineas and he does care about him because he was friends with Finn's parents. So this is an extension of these people he was close with growing up, and Finn looks just like his mother. So there's that constant reminder of where he came from, who he is, and then certain other aspects of the story I don't want to spoil that Mariah understands about Finn as well. And so he does have that soft spot for, I have to prepare him, I have to make him stronger. He needs to be able to handle this. But also, I recognize this is a lot, and Finn's not Holland. He is not going to carry on and just stuff it all down. Finn is going to have a multiple times is going to need to have a cry about it. And I think the way Holland even shows, not Holland, Mariah shows soft spots towards Finn and Holland is very different.
Yeah.
He clearly cares about both of them, but the way he helps and guides them and empathizes with them and how he treats them is very tailored to who they are as individuals, and he doesn't have like a blanket approach to dealing with them.
He is like Finn, like Holland is so level-headed and Finn's a hot mess. Like
They're a good
Finn's
team.
kind of a wild card because even though, like, as his classmates get to know him, they're like, you can't really predict what he's gonna do, but you can to an extent. Because when there's a point where they have to recognize each other's like strengths and tendencies and weaknesses or what things that they can work on, and a lot of them faithfully know, like, even if you can't predict what he's gonna do, you know that he's gonna be there for you. He's not gonna leave you, and like. I love Finn for that. Like I would, if like I said, I have two little boys, and it's like the Wild West around here sometimes where I'm like and like my younger one, he has such second child energy, and that's what's hilarious to me because Phineas totally has second child energy because his older sister, like, she looked out for him because there's like what a 2 or 3 year difference between the two of them,
They are
like 4 years or
4
something like
years.
that. Yeah, and so it was like, I could totally see that where she's like, she in it took on the older sister role, like typical older sister role, but then and then he took on that, like, he relies on that lifeline. He relies on that comfort, and he knows that he can rely on her for that, just for older sister, for that comfort, for that family, for that support. But he is also a wild card. It just reminded me of my younger son, where I was like, Finn, like, dude, like, okay, first think. I was like, can you have some sort of like survival instinct in you? And secondly, be the bigger person and walk away. You don't have to fight with fists all the time. Because that's what makes him such an interesting character. Because there are certain points where he deliberately chooses not to fight with violence. He deliberately chooses to, like, I'm going to see if I can come to an agreement, bargain, any of that. But then with other certain people, he's like, no, fuck you. I just want to, your face is punchable. That's how he looks at it. You need to be punched. You need to be tackled to the ground. But then there's other instances where he's like, I don't want to fight. It's like, I love that. I love that kind of like dichotomy of his approach to situations where I guess it's like, it's also telling him as a character where he's like, he knows he either I don't know if it's smart the way he chooses or if it's just he's it's instinctual.
I think it's really interesting you touched on Finn's insane child energy. I think like what's really fun is that he and Holland both exhibit wild second child energy, but so different. Because I think there's only two dynamics you really get with second children. It's either my older sibling over coddled me and was another parent, or me and my older sibling butted heads a lot. So with Finn, Fiona was very parentified because her mother was dead. It's not a spoiler, she dies in the prologue. So she took on that very motherly role and nurtured him. So Finn was allowed to just be whoever he wanted to be. Nobody was stopping him. Everybody coddled him and just treasured him for just being alive. And then you have Holland, whose brother is first in line to be king. And his father, the king, clearly does not favor Holland. He just dotes on Holland's brother Kieran a lot. So Holland's second child energy very much comes out in the competitive, I'm just as good as you. I have to be acknowledged as being just as good as you, and I have to be just as perfect at this. And he's just very competitive, even with Finn. And I think it's really interesting, even when you see them interact with their siblings, that Finn immediately capitulates to whatever Fiona wants. Like, super wild the moment she shows up. He's like, what do you need? Do you want to hang out? Like, can we have dinner together? And then anytime Kieran's even remotely nice to Holland, Han's like, I don't like that. And Kieran's just a genuinely nice guy who wants his brother to like him. And Holland's like, nope, nah, dad liked you more. And I've just got a chip on my shoulder, and often takes it out, I think, on Finn. And so I think they're just the relationship they have with their family is so totally different that I think their similarities just, I think that it's very interesting that they have so many similarities in the end, but the way they approach things is they couldn't be any different.
Yeah, 100%. I like they're like touching on what you said before. It was like they just constantly fight. They constantly fight and they constantly get into it. And I'm like, give it a rest. There was a point where I was like, there are bigger things at play. Why are you guys still getting into it? Like at every little thing. But then that's just like part of their growth and their relationship as cousins and as people who are they don't know it, but they are feeling the same things and they're going through the same things. And they're just like, but they're normal preteen boys. They don't talk about their feelings yet, or at least not with each other. They might feel comfortable, like Finn, obviously he probably feels comfortable talking with Fiona about whatever's going on because he confides in her. But Holland, he's just looking out for his baby brother, but Holland's got something to prove.
Definitely.
Yeah, it just adds to the soul. It's like so many things. And oh, and by the way, you gotta there's this tournament that determines the next so many years of your life.
I think it's really interesting because you had touched on when they have their little war game, and the others, they all have to say, like, who's good at what, and everybody immediately is like, we trust Finn, he's got our backs. But I think it's really interesting as you read through the book that the same weird kind of innate loyalty they have to Finn, they have to Holland, but it's a very different relationship because it's very much a Finn has our backs. Holland will make sure we win. So where if like there's a war, Finn is making sure all his men get out of there, and if he has to die, he has to die. Whereas Holland is making sure we win the war, and if you have to die, you have to die. And so they have these very different, again, very different approaches to the same ends. And everybody recognizes that these are two people who should, despite obviously inherently being in titles of leadership because of who they are, they earn it amongst their married band of 12 that they've got going on over there in their first year. So they both have very strong forces of personality and charisma, but it's very different charisma. Like Finn's who you want to hang out with at the end of a long day. Holland is who you want to be in charge of a project because you'll get an A in the project.
I love that. It's so perfect. It's so true. Cause yeah, you're absolutely right. Obviously, you're absolutely right because you made the story. But like it's like character deep dive into it because yeah, they are. But you need both of them. You need both of them to work like in a team to really succeed for the group for the better because they also it's just those components and they complement each other. They're how they grew up, and at the beginning, it's just the beauty of it where they're like total like enemies and Finn is so clueless. Like when all the drama happens and there's unfortunate tragedies and stuff and he's just walking around like what's your problem? And it's like dude, read the room. Like do you
Yeah, Finn's not a room reader. Finn is just going to have whatever emotion Finn has, and whatever you're doing is inconsequential to what he's feeling in the moment. So yeah,
it's
when Holland was understandably very upset after a certain thing happened, he's like, "Why are you moping so much?" And he's like, "My guy,
yeah.
we're at a funeral. Why are you not?"
And it's so funny because it's like then when you think about when you learn more when the readers learn most about like towards the end about Holland and who he's connected to and who the reason for like his personality traits. He not only like because the readers learn more, but then he opens up a little bit more towards the end about like how he's feeling. It's that allows a reader to just really we make sense of it, but then it's also like, "Oh, baby boy," or like, "Oh," it's reflective, but also explanatory, and I as a reader, at least for myself, that was so fun and, like, emotionally impactful because, again, like, not only second child energy, but also the implications of everybody who's, like, in the same common denominator, if you will, of, like, of that group of people who identify as what he ultimately will. I feel like I'm being so cryptic and unhelpful right now, even though we're trying to be spoiler free.
I'm totally with you. I think when you reread book one, having read it already, when I first hear people read it, everybody always says I hate Holland. He is just awful. Holland's my favorite character. And I think when you reread book one, knowing everything, it gives you a much deeper understanding of why Holland behaves the way Holland behaves. Just like you said, not even like not even like inbred factors, but environmental factors. And it ties back again to him and Finn being two sides of the same coin. Like Finn's dad loved Finn. Like that was his cherished child. Like he is so about that kid. Holland's dad was just like indifferent to Holland's existence, if not outright abusive towards him. Finn's mom is dead. Holland's mom is like globbed onto him, super coddled him. That's her golden child. That's my precious baby boy. You can do no wrong. So that mentality of one parent outright hating you while the other one pits you against your brother and tells you how perfect you are while he is just like his father. And that's why you shouldn't like him. That's going to breed a lot of behavioral issues to begin with. And then Finn was kept up north with his family. It was really pretty much just them and then the one town near where their castle is. And it was very isolated from everybody else. Whereas Holland is living in the capital as the son of the king. So he has a very different environment going on with everything. So those I think primary factors of how their parents treated them, how Felix was so happy to have Finn and loved both of his children very equally. He does not neglect Fiona in any way. He very much like trusts her, turns to her even though she's only 16, and entrusts a lot of caring for Finn into his daughter because he knows that she's mature and she's capable and she's very smart. Whereas the primary sect of the royal family is just super dysfunctional and breeds resentment within their walls. And I think it's very interesting, again, how you see these two people who are in the same spot who have very similar situations going on with having an older sibling and being the second child and being a prince and raised in a castle, but how their environments very much shaped them. Finn was very shielded from the world thanks to Felix and Mariah, whereas Holland was very much aware from the moment he was born that he was a prince, but he's not the important prince. And I think even how they interact with their friends at school is very impacted by Finn didn't have friends, but he wants to have friends. He's an outgoing kid by nature, whereas Holland wants to have friends, but knows ultimately in terms of society, he's better. So he just naturally places himself over people and doesn't think about the implications of how that behavior impacts other people. And then he feels bad about it later. But he's not going to let you know he feels bad about it later. Whereas Finn will just apologize to people and then cry about it and move on.
Yeah, that you're absolutely right, where Finn, he's, like, a little more humble because he's like, "Oh," he's, like, recognizing it, but yeah, exactly, Holland is like, "I'm gonna acknowledge it, but I'm gonna move on because there's bigger fish to fry," or yeah, he's got this exalted, like, he's on a pedestal, and because that's what he feels like is expected of him. Finn's like, "I'm not even the spare." He's like, "I'm not."
You in this situation. He's like, guys, I'm number 3 at best, and really
Yeah.
my sister. Let's be honest.
Yeah, and of course, like, I'm like, "Fiona, yes, queen," like, she'd be like,
Fiona
"Go
would be the
girl."
most competent. I feel like it's very clear that even Kieran recognizes Fiona's the most competent in the group, and he's like, "Girl, I don't want to be king. This is terrible. I just want to have some wine, hang out with my guys.
Yeah.
I'm not here for this." And
He'd
she's
be
like,
like, "Fiona, you wanna be hand? You wanna be hand? You wanna be my, like, wing woman? My, like,
exactly.
little advisor? Like, whatever. Can I give you a title where you will, be allowed to make important decisions with me?" Like
I feel like side story of just Fiona dealing with her people and her family would just be her constantly having a drink of wine, like straight up Scar from The Lion King. I'm surrounded by idiots.
Yes.
What is wrong with all of you? Like mommy issues, daddy issues, you've become an alcoholic. We've got so many
Fin
problems going.
issues, like this,
Stop
like, my little brother, what did he do again? Like, what?
setting this on fire, guys.
It's like, hey, can you stay out of trouble for 5 fucking minutes? Seriously, like,
Exactly. Like I said, she'd be the most competent of the group. That's why she can't be in charge.
yeah.
We have problems at that point.
There would be no story if Fiona was in charge. There would just
Exactly. Kingdom would be running really smoothly. Everybody would be emotionally well and well adjusted. There'd
she would
be
have
yeah, there'd
health care, mental health taken care of.
be
She would make
no
sure there was
plague going on. Girl would have figured that out real quick.
she would made sure the resources were distributed like logically. She would have put all the stupid men in their place. Like, hey, we don't need to worry about this. Let's worry about this, okay? Like, it's so
100%.
funny.
That's why she can't be in charge. There'd be no story at that point.
That's so funny. I don't know if you're gonna spoil this. This is just for me. What's going on with her and Ridley? Or is it
So
gonna spoil like is that gonna if it's blood in the water territory, then we could pass this. But I'm like,
I feel like
you
it's not
teased it.
super blood in the water territory because you don't see too much of either of them in blood in the water.
Because
You
what
get
we know of Fiona is that she was staying with them. And so there's
one thing you got to know about the Mordreys is they're all just so good looking. People can't help themselves. And like, I feel like at the end of book one, when you see their dad, it's just this. His kids are in their 30s and 20s, and this man is just exasperated. He's like, I can't. Nobody keeps it in their pants. These damn kids of mine. There's 9 of them. How do I keep track? I don't even know. And none of them in their adult age are at all responsible people. Like Mariah and Odette straight up are hiding from their father. They're grown people. Mariah is the equivalent of leading SEAL Team 6 in their world. He is the Lord Commander of the Night Court, and this man is hiding from his own dad.
yeah.
Like his younger brother was like, dude, really? And he's like, look, he likes you. He's not a fan of me. I'm not going to touch that. And so you just see Vance Mordray, who's this very powerful lord of one of the wealthiest families, and he's just like, my biggest problem's my kids. I've gone gray early. These
That's
damn
hilarious. That makes him so
I get more
relatable.
of it in book 3, where you're like, oh, maybe Vance was justified in his exasperation with his 9 very capable, very powerful children.
It's like that's yeah, hey, you raised them the best you could and that's what you got.
That like 8 of the 9 are insane people, and you just got that one that you're like, that's my golden child right there. She can do no wrong, and then the rest of them you're like, I don't know. I don't even know what they've done this time.
I love that. I love how you described like all of them because they're all like in unison and you could tell Odette was she gravitated towards this and that like Mariah. I'm a sucker for like the soft-hearted, the softies like Noelle. I'm like he's just like trying so hard, but they're all like get out of the way. like
He's too cute for his own family. They're like, you're just too nice. We're a family of black cats, and you're a golden retriever.
they're like seriously.
Poor man just wants like everybody to calm down. And just like when Ridley shows up to the island and him and Mariah are constantly fighting,
Yeah.
he flip
So wait,
flops.
he's the youngest and Mariah is like not quite the oldest, right?
Mariah is the 3rd oldest, but he's the oldest of the boys.
Okay, so that's why he was like, little boy,
Yeah,
get your shit together. This is not like I do not want to see you here. You like
100%. Yeah, I feel like it's really interesting because, like, we talked about the sibling dynamics that Holland and Finn have with each other and with their own siblings. But I think the Mordreys have the most interesting sibling dynamic, the way they talk about each other.
again, a novella, give a novella or a series
Right?
about the
You get
Mordred.
a lot about them in book 2 and 3, and even into like book 5, you get a lot of Mordray content. But like I said, they're like 9 very capable, grown adult, well trained, strong, just frightening people, but yet they act so petty sometimes toward each other. And like the fact that the 2 grown men, one of them's like, I'm not going to talk to him. He's not my favorite brother. And they're like, okay, but you're living in the same castle right now for the game, so you got to get
But
over
he's
it.
here right now.
Yeah, and poor Noel's just like, I don't know what's wrong with everybody. And they all just like shit on Noel constantly. And you're like, this poor guy, he's just so nice. He's too nice for any of them. And then I think it's just like really interesting when you have these like untouchable, perfect seeming characters. And then when you get them just alone together as a family, they bicker like children again. And they're like, when we were 9, you did this. And it's like, okay, you guys
Because
don't get
everybody
over
sees
it.
us like, oh, the Marjories. Like they're legends, and they're like they've got like a reputation. But then like if you went, yeah, exactly. Like if you went to have Thanksgiving dinner like as an in-law, or
Yeah,
if
that's
you
a Jerry Springer show that just it's terrifying to people. Like anytime like Finn's like just in a group with them, he's like, okay, this seems like there's more important things to be doing instead of arguing over something entirely irrelevant right now. But that's they've got to get it out of their system before they can be useful. And then like even into book three, something happens that involves the Mortrays, and Finn's like, are we gonna take care of that? And Mariah's like, Ridley, I don't even know if we should. And they're like, okay, we should, because it's very plot relevant at this point. And like a big portion of the book is getting Mariah to care about the plot.
I for some reason I feel like that's just gonna make me swoon over him even harder. Like just
When I was writing him, the only way I could describe him to my friends is that he is every Hot Topic girl's like fantasy man. Like
like
he lives
I
on
don't
his
care.
in his black leather outfit, never sweating, talks to his pet fox,
Flicked
just
hair, like
yeah, slick back black. He's like sexy Snape. He's just walking around not caring about
super
anything.
fit, like good at everything. Like
Yeah, swoops in, fixes some things, doesn't care how that makes you feel, leaves again. Inexplicably is so mean to Fiona for no reason all the time, which I personally find funny. The way he immediately is like, nope, don't like you, and just is never nice to her. Not rude. He's just like
it's
apathetic.
dismissive.
Yeah,
It's
he's just
because
like,
she's got a thing with Ridley and he's like, "Girl,
it's like really him of all of us. That's a bad choice. So yeah, I think the Mordreds, I think their sibling relationship, independent of their relationship with everybody else, their sibling relationship, I think, is just funny.
I love it. No, I love it. I love because I'm just one for like messiness makes things so much funnier and interesting. And it just also is like things would be boring if everything went smoothly, right? Like it's like you add in the sibling rivalry, the family drama, you add in like people, the wild cards like Finn. It's just that's a good story. And like you got to figure it out from there. So I love that the Mordreys are like a whole thing. They're a whole vibe and that like Mariah is such like such a focus, but he's one of nine. Like we're just like not even tapping the surface because Odette, like you said, like she's a force within her own right. And then Noel, it's like he's a softie, but he's also like he's still formidable
Yeah, even
fighter.
the
He's like
soft Mordreys are going to get
yeah.
you. And I think, like you said, you're not even scratching the surface because you meet four, and then Nan, Fiona's going to be watched by one of Mariah's sisters, and all the Mordreys are like, which sister? I need you to clarify. One of them is a bad choice. And he's like, oh no, it's Emrys. And everybody's like, okay, the responsible one. That makes sense. Good pick. And then in book three, you realize why Mariah and Noel were immediately like, yeah, I need you to clarify because the eldest Mordray sister plays a very large role in book three.
That's hilarious. I love that. I cannot wait. Oh, I'm gonna throw this at you. What I don't even know how to ask this. What advice would you give to Finn, to Fiona, to Mariah at the end of book one?
At the end of book one, what advice would I give to
And
Finn?
then let's add Holland onto that, just because
Holland.
I'm feeling a little frisky.
Finn's would probably be, it's gonna get worse, but you're gonna be okay. Fiona's
That's
would
so
probably,
Harry Potter. It's like but like it's gonna hurt, but you're gonna like it. Like
yeah, exactly. It's gonna get so much worse, but you will be okay eventually. Fiona's would probably be don't fall for the pretty boys. Um, Holland's would be don't be so codependent. And then Mariah's would probably be you should have like joined the priesthood or something and been celibate. Like he has no advice. His would just be like a vague reprimand, like this could have been prevented, buddy.
I love that because it's like he couldn't, from the sounds of it, he had his pick of the litter,
Yeah,
and
he still does, and he still doesn't care.
and
Oh, yeah.
then what he got himself into, and you're still like, bruh.
Bad choices. Him and Fiona need to be sat down about their personal choices and been like,
There's like
we're not
cool,
the
like
best.
cold bucket of ice water thrown on them.
Exactly.
Like,
She needs to go to the convent. He needs to go to a priesthood, and they just need to stay there. That would be my advice is to the both of them. Clearly, they're not going to better themselves, especially Mariah. He has proven this now because he's not gotten better as he's gotten older. It'd be
so
like,
he's
buddy,
still like, I just like in my fantasy of Mariah, or like my head canon. I don't want to say fantasy because that sounds creepy. My head canon, he's still active.
yeah, I would say that. Again, it'd just be like, you understand why his dad is exasperated. He's got 9 of these kids going around. But I think, yeah, my advice there would be no advice for Fiona and Mariah. They just need to be sent away. They need to be sent away to
Just
isolation.
take a seat, take several seats until we can figure out this thing, and then we'll come back to you. Like,
Yes, we can afford therapy and we invent psychiatry in the medieval times. Then we will deal with your nonsense.
I love that because as far as I know from finishing only the first book, I'm thinking I'm not seeing any of that same advice for Mariah and Fiona. Of like Fiona is just like, yeah, just be careful, girl. Mariah, I'm just be careful, but on a different playing field. But like, no, you're like, no, they need to.
They need to be stopped. They won't be, but they need to be stopped. Finn and Holland need a Prozac would probably be good for Holland. And then Finn just needs a hug and be
The
like, it's not getting better for you.
the
You're
Fynneas
doing
Fog,
okay.
the world equivalent. What is the Asterian equivalent of prose?
Medicinal tea or something.
Like all the magic they have, or all the magical like furry friends that they've got, like can't Terry come up with some like Prozac or
Right? Whip something up.
Wellbutrin or
Calm down, my guy. You're too tightly wound. But yeah, especially like going into book 2, somebody needs to be like, you need to be less codependent and like be a big boy now. And then
I
Finn
love
is
it.
not gonna have a good time.
Because I'm sitting here like, I volunteer as tribute for Mariah. Like I'll be there to chill in his room, heal his wounds, take care of his boredom, or and not that he would listen to me. I would kind of give him my 2 cents. Not that he would listen to me, but
Dude's
be
here for
like,
just
bruh, can you like stay out of trouble for a hot second? Like, and he'd be like, what trouble?
yeah. Mariah's the trouble finds me, I don't find trouble kind of man.
He's like, what are you talking about? I'm about to go beat the shit out of my brother. Like, what?
Those are his like only hobbies. He's like killing people with the night core, bully my siblings, take a nap, and then like occasionally see my lady friend. And it's
Yep.
like, stop it with the fourth option.
Stop seeing the lady friend, at least for a hot second, because it's gonna
Because you're
get you in
causing
trouble.
problems for everybody.
Their rumors are going around, okay?
Exactly.
Like I love it. I love it. I love that's I'm always an advocate for female rage and chaos. So like I'm like, Mariah, you go get yours, boo. Like I'm
And
like
he did go get his, and that is what caused a lot of problems.
so like maybe don't go get yours.
Yeah, stay in your room alone for a while.
Maybe just like stay away from the ogling, from the swoony eyes. So like he's aware of it, right? Like he's aware of that he's like a heartthrob, or he just doesn't care.
I think he just doesn't care. I
He
think
just doesn't.
people tell him constantly, and he's like, doesn't make sense to me, and then just goes on in his own indifferent little way, not recognizing the effect he's having on the female and male population of this
I
country.
love it. I love it because I just want to get in his head. I want to know what he's thinking, and it's hilarious to me where if he was like, he's like, yeah, okay, and just like he knows, like, yeah, I know the effect I have on people. Like it reminds me of like of the Office with Idris Elba. I know the effect that I have on women. He just carries on. Like that's how I feel like maybe Mariah is.
I feel like Mariah operates under the I'm confused why people have this reaction kind of mentality. And he's like, bad choice on your part. And then just doesn't care. Because it's like a lot like Finn. Once Finn has decided on, I like this girl, and his dad's like, oh, she pretty. And he's like, what does that matter?
Yeah, I love that. I love that, by the way. That's something that we didn't really touch upon. I love that where he's like kind of fishing for it. And Finn is like, what do you mean? Like,
Yeah, she's like, she's cool and I like her. And like, he's just obsessed with her from then on. But he does not care what she looks like. And I think Mariah with his unnamed lady friend is the very similar. Like, obviously he picked she's a very attractive woman, but Mariah's just like, no, I like her. And there's no other purview to him. Like
yeah,
pretty women passing him by means nothing. He's like, I don't get it. He's like, I feel like almost entirely asexual, except for this one person he has like hyper fixated on. He's like, her, I like her and nobody else. And then everybody's like, but you're so pretty. You're like not a handsome man, you're a beautiful man. I'm
yeah,
like, I just want to kill stuff, man. I just want to go out, stab some things, play with fire, and I like this one girl, and everything else is irrelevant. But he's put in this situation where he has to interact socially because he's a lord and he's the oldest son of this family. And much like Finn, does not want to be involved in everything he has to be involved in. And Finn whines about it in Holland, or Mariah's just like, I guess this is what I'm doing these days.
yeah.
Like, now I'm a teacher. Great. All right, let's get on with it.
I love it. I think I just like I'm drawn to those kind of personalities. So they're like dutiful, but they're like, yeah, what are we gonna do? I think as far as like a attraction point of view where they just it's so much funnier when they or like when they like their feathers are ruffled or when they like there's that energy of like that sexual attraction and they're not they just don't feed off of it. I love it. I love it. And there's that level of like what like they're confused. I love characters like that. So very good on making Mariah swoony, dreamy, but aloof. Like like he doesn't get it and he's just like going about his day. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, he's the kind of character I gravitate towards too in books and movies. So I just rolled with it. It was like he is a black cat. He's like, I don't know why you want to pet me. I just want to go and play with Young and walk around and take a nap.
I'm
And
just
everything's so
here.
beautiful. And he's like, I don't care. It's not my
I'm
issue.
just here and these are my siblings and my parents
He's like,
and
I'm just
yeah.
stuck with all these people. Yeah,
I
that's
love it.
he's probably my second favorite, if not tied with Holland.
Who's your first?
Holland.
Holland.
I do love myself Holland. I think he's just funny when you really get down to the nitty gritty of his personality. You're like, this is not a well adjusted boy.
And he's like, yeah, I know my father is not crazy about me. So what? Like
He's like, he's not enthused. I'm not enthused about him either. It's like, I guess that's fair.
and he's like 12.
Yeah, it's 12 with a lot of big feelings about a lot of things.
I know. It's like what I'm like, because we, at the end of the day, like after the kids, like after we have like dinner and all that, we just, me and my husband and the kids, we're on our tablets or we're reading our books. Like we're in the same, like we're in the living room, but we're doing our own thing. And so it's funny where I'm like, I can see that connection. I could see that, like, I look at my little kid and I'm like, God, what is he going to be like in 4 years? Like, as a 13, 12-year-old, I'm like, I don't even want to know because they're already like boy humor. They're like farting on me because they think it's funny. And I'm like, get out of here. Like it's me and the dog, she's a girl, but then it's like me and her and my husband and two kids and like we're
Oh, you're
outnumbered.
outnumbered. Yeah.
We're outnumbered. It's I'm just like in gross boy territory and like they'll just be silly and all that, but it's all gross boy stuff. And so when I read books, I was like when I was like in Finn's world, I was like, yeah, okay, little
Yeah.
boy
Finn's
thing.
a boy's boy. Colin not so much, but Finn he's a guy's guy.
Yeah,
He's gonna dirty punch stuff, not listen, do his own thing,
yep.
be weird around girls. He is the epitome of a boy.
Yeah, and that's why I was like, maybe that's part of like why I felt like a little more connected, but also I love the fantasy and I love the world building, but also the interactions that you had with all your characters, how they each of them were going to work together during things that maybe were expected and were not expected, and I was just like, what is going on? Like half the time I feel like what is going on? And then the kids were like, what is going on? I was like, okay, cool. Like we're the
Oh,
we're in the
girl,
same
just
boat.
wait till book two.
Oh
Finn's
God.
entire monologue in book two is what is happening right
No,
now?
I'm excited to dig in. Like I was so grateful for you that you sent me those like so long ago, and then I was like, "Oh shit, like it's August." That's how I felt.
Here, man,
I
it's
was
going
like, "Oh my God, we're gonna talk soon." Because we were talking so early, because I do at least 1 or 2 interviews a week, and that's why I was like, "No, I got availability in September." And you were like, "Yeah, cool." And I was like, "Okay, I got time to read." And then time came up, and then I was like, "Oh shit." No, I'm so glad that I had time and that I was able to finish Knight of Swords, because that was it was a fun ride. It was a fun ride, and I'm so eager to learn where the fuck this story is gonna go. I like, especially Mariah and Fiona, like you said, and then also, of course, Finn and Holland, and learning whatever animal companions you got going on, and their celestial or ghost-like figures that are gonna pop up. There's so much going on, but I love it. I love it. So to wrap up here, Brooklyn Quintana, we've only been talking about number one. What can we expect from maybe continuation on from here for Phineas Fog series?
So there's going to be 9 books total. Like I said,
What?
yeah, we got a lot going on with Finn's life. Book 3 is coming out in 2026. Each book, while they're all fantasy, has a slightly different flair to it. So where book 1 had that Jumanji Hunger Games feeling, book 2 is very Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland inspired. Also, Dante's Inferno is inspired. So those are the 2 primary influences for that book. And then book 3, I'm not going to tell you what it's inspired by, but there's always a bit of different flair to each book to keep things interesting and to keep Finn's world ever expanding, and always something new and fun, and a lot of new characters are coming up. I think that when you go into book 2, you should expect Finn and Holland's relationship continues to grow and gets more and more complicated. And there's a lot more wild, weird creatures to come, and a lot of magic, mayhem, murder, a lot of blood, a lot of mysteries. So it's going to be a good time, and I'm really excited about it.
I I can't wait, but also I'm like, what? I'm like, one step at a time. Brooklyn Quintana, where can we find you online and on social media?
You can go to my author site, brooklynquintana.com. I have links to podcasts that I've appeared on there, information about the books, information about me, and my contact information. There's also fynneasfog.com. That's just like a platform to tell you what's coming up, when new stories are dropping, and things like that. I am on TikTok at, oh no, what am I at? I'm at the Brooklyn Q, YouTube as Brooklyn Q, and Instagram as brooklyn.quintana. I am active on all 3 all the time.
Perfect. No, I think I've seen you. I am in a group with like a lot of other bookish podcasts, and I think I've seen you featured with them too. So I was really excited to be able to talk to you, because you were like making your rounds, hopping on the podcasts and doing your work. Like you were hustling. You were hustling. You were like reaching out to
Always doing
everybody.
something.
I love that. No, that's why I was like, it did make me more excited to talk to you, because I was like, oh hell yeah, like people who I know talk to you. And like I appreciate that too, where you were like, no, you gotta do your own exposure, your own promo. I love that.
You always got to be out in front of people, even if like book 3 isn't out yet. I'm still out here hawking my
And
wares.
yeah, you were like in your own little corner, like, oh, and also side comment, as a creeper, you got engaged recently?
I did, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
congratulations. That's so exciting.
it was very weird because, like you said, I'm always doing promotional things. I was actually doing a talk for the Martin County Arts Commission about being an author, and my boyfriend was supposed to be at work, and he surprised me during the Q&A to ask a very special question. So it was very sweet.
Oh my God. What a he's got it. He could just give lessons and just be like, "Hey, you want to propose to your woman? Find out what's important to her.
Yeah,
Surprise her. Be like, "Oh, I can't be there. Be
yeah.
there anyway."
Get yourself a Hallmark boy. That's what I always said. He looks like he
How
wanted
long have you guys been together before he proposed?
a year and a half.
That's so special. That's so cute. Oh my God. So he tuned in. He got you. He
Yeah, no,
got
he's my biggest cheerleader. He's probably the one who tells me you got to write book 3 more than anybody else.
I love that. That's
Very-
what you need. You
yeah,
need someone who, because I imagine maybe sometimes you're like, yeah, it's there. Yeah, I'll do it. But then he's like, no, you got to do it.
Yeah, all the time, actually. He goes to
Yeah,
all
you're like, "Okay, you're right, I gotta do it." Yeah.
is a great cheerleader. So shout out to you, Dan. He goes to all my events. He carries my signs and my books. He tells people about. We went to did an escape room, and he told the lady I was an author, and she bought my book on the spot. And I was
Oh
like,
my god.
okay, good salesman. Well done. Well
That is
done.
that's the bar. That's the minimum.
Yeah, don't
Wherever he
expect
goes,
that.
he's
Like,
gonna tell everybody to buy your book.
yes, even if it's like a completely irrelevant moment.
Yeah.
Good on
Even
him.
if they don't even read, even if they don't even like fantasy, he's like, "Buy her book." I love that. Oh, I'm so happy for you. That's so amazing.
Thank
I love
you.
that. So Brooklyn Quintana, Nine of Swords, and Blood in the Water. Number 3 is in the works. Thank you so much for your time and for your answers and for all that good stuff. And when and if you're ready to talk about number 3 or number 4 or number 5, whatever, go to number 9 apparently, or if you just want to hang out and catch up on the podcast, I'd love to chat with you again.
Yeah, let's do it. I'll be around, and thank you so much for having me on this time.
And there you go. That was Brooklyn Quintana talking about her book, Nine of Swords. That is the first book in her Fynneas Fog series. Check out the show notes to see links where you can find Brooklyn online and on social media and where to purchase the books. In the show notes, you'll also see where to find Cantina Book Clubs on your favorite social media book communities, such as Bookstagram, BookTok, BookTube, Threads, Facebook, and more. And I would love and appreciate it if you could hit that follow or subscribe button so that you never miss out on book reviews or author interviews. And if you have any book loving friends who are looking to get more out of their reading lists, please share Cantina Book Club with them so that they can find upcoming releases and interviews with authors. Another way to help this podcast is to head over to your favorite podcast player and give Cantina Book Club a rating and review. It helps me reach more potential listeners and fellow book lovers like you. And that goes for any podcast that you listen to. It's one of the easiest things that you could do to help out. If you need any book recommendations, you can reach out to me. I'm always excited to share my thoughts and recent favorites. You can head on over to cantinabookclub.com to read more in-depth book reviews from all types of genres. If you're while you're at it, you can subscribe by entering your email on the website so that you can get new reviews and episode posts delivered directly to your inbox. If you want to support Cantina Book Club even more, you could donate by finding the form on cantinabookclub.com. Whether it's one-time donation or as little as $1 a month, I seriously appreciate the support and will share my appreciation by giving you a shout out on the show. And finally, one of the best ways to help authors promote their works is to head on over to Amazon, Goodreads, Storygraph, or wherever you rate your books and give a title you've read a rating and review. It's seriously one of the easiest ways to help out an author besides actually purchasing the book or even shouting out on social media. Thanks so much for listening and see you next time. Cheers.